Hello, and welcome back to the Conspiracy Couple podcast. I'm Marisa.
And I'm Ethan.
And today we have another very interesting topic to dive into with you guys. But before we get started, as always, I am turning it over to my co-host.
It's a long way to say that.
Yes.
Anyway, follow us on Instagram at Conspiracy Couple. Follow us on TikTok at Conspiracy Couple Podcast. And subscribe on YouTube, also at Conspiracy Couple Podcast. And if you're already watching, hello. Nice to see you. You look great. You should subscribe if you're not already. You should turn on post notifications. And you should like and comment on this video, letting us know what you think.
Oh, okay, yeah. Thank you.
That's everything.
No updates for...
Nope.
Okay. So, we're just gonna cut to the chase, dive right in, and we are going to get into it. So, this week on the podcast... What? Why are you
Cut
counting?
to the chase, dive right in, get into it.
Yes.
We're cutting to the chase. We're not doing any extra things. So we're also going to dive right in.
Yes.
And we're get right into it.
Yes, I'm trying to think of another one to add just to be annoying.
Too late. I was already annoying enough.
That's true. So, we are going to be discussing a very mysterious U.S. landmark whose recent destruction led to even more mystery and confusion.
A landmark?
A landmark. So today we are going to be discussing the Georgia Guidestones. As always, Ethan, have you ever heard about the Georgia Guidestones?
No.
Okay. So
I would assume they are in Georgia.
Okay. Yeah. Way to use your deductive reasoning skills. Is that deductive or inductive?
Deductive?
Because deduction, that's what Sherlock Holmes would do, right?
I don't know.
Anyways, so the Georgia Guidestones. Yes, they are in Georgia. Very good. So they were first unveiled to the public. We're going to talk a little bit about what they are.
What do you mean unveiled?
So we're going to get into it.
Okay.
So basically, they were revealed. They were, I want to say released, but you don't release like a landmark. But they were unveiled on March 22nd, 1980. Happy, very, very, very early birthday to you, Ethan.
It's 27 years early.
Yes. They were, instead of being like late for your birthday, they were like, we're going to be 27 years early.
Well, I've never even heard of them, so.
Okay, well, it doesn't... They probably feel really bad about it. Anyways, so the Georgia Guidestones are located in Georgia, but they are near the border of Georgia and South Carolina in a place called Elbert County. And they have also been called American Stonehenge because they bear a resemblance to the famous monument in Europe, Stonehenge. However, of course, they do have some pretty significant differences between the two, but they do look similar, so that's why they've been called that. So the stones are arranged in the shape of an X, and each axis on the stones is arranged to match a specific point in the moon's yearly rotation around the Earth.
So
we're going to get into more specifically about what they are.
Okay.
But that's just like
what they look like?
Bear's backbones. We're going to get into all the details about that. And we're going to start off by talking about before the Guidestones were even built, before they were even a thing. Because that's where the real mystery starts, is when the process of creating these Guidestones began. So we're going to go back to the summer of 1979. And we have a man who goes by the name of R.C. Christian. So this man, R.C. Christian, comes to Elberton, Georgia with a purpose. And he stated that he was looking for a granite firm to build a monument, as well as looking for a place that would be suitable for the monument to be built. She wants to get in on it. So R.C. Christian said that he had chosen to use this specific spot to come to Elbert County for a couple reasons. One, Elbert County has a large supply of granite and is known for their granite industry. Two, he said he liked the landscape. He liked the nature in the area, he liked the habitat, and he also liked the climate. He said it was milder, and that's what he enjoyed about it. And he also wanted space to build the monument in a place that was more rural and away from large city spaces and away from tourists. And three, he also stated that some of his ancestors were from the area. So he comes in and he says he wants to build this monument, and he says that he represents an organization. And the organization was behind this desire to build the monument. And this organization not only was going to provide the desire for the monument, but they were also going to provide the funding for the project. But the name of the organization was not revealed. So he said, I represent an organization, and the organization wants me to come and find a place to build this monument, and they're going to pay for it, but he would not say what the name was. And the name of the organization behind the Guidestones is still not known. So the monument was designed to be inscribed with, quote, wisdom for the ages. And that would serve to lead humanity into an age of reason. And he also said that he and the group had the long-term goal of having other groups with similar values and beliefs to build even more monuments around the original Guidestones to create like a ring around it. And he said money was no object when it came to the building of the Guidestones, and that basically like whatever was needed to spend, whatever they wanted to spend, that wasn't a problem, but that he needed this project to be completed with discretion, that he wanted it to be kept a secret. And R.C. Christian himself stated that his name, Christian, was not his real name, but that it was actually a pseudonym, and he had chosen this pseudonym because it was representative of his beliefs and values, as well as the beliefs and values of this mysterious organization that he represented. So to this day, the real identity of R.C. Christian is not known. Nobody knows who he really is or who this organization was. So with that, he finds a crew of people to start construction, and construction of the Guidestones began. And the monument was built in the middle of a 5-acre plot of land. And this 5-acre plot of land was in the middle of a cow pasture. And it had a viewpoint to both the east and the west. The land was owned by Elbert County itself, and the location was near to a place that apparently the Cherokee tribe believed to be the center of the world. And this was something that they called Alyeli Alohi. I hope I pronounced that right. So they have this construction crew. Nobody involved in the building or involved in the construction knows what the purpose of the Guidestones are. They just know that they've been hired to do this, and so they're doing it. Nobody knew, not even the person who sold the land, where the stones be situated on. So the guy who sells the land to R.C. Christian doesn't even know what the purpose of the stones is. So, as I mentioned earlier, the Guidestones weren't just going to be these big stone monuments to look pretty, to create some, atmosphere to the cow pasture, but they were also going to be inscribed with a message on them. So, basically, we have, I'm going to try and describe it.
I can just put a picture up.
But at the very top of the monuments, there's this concrete slab. And inscribed onto that is the phrase, "Let these be guidestones to an age of reason." And this message was written in Babylonian cuneiform, Egyptian hieroglyphics, Sanskrit, and ancient Greek. So some interesting language choices, specifically like Babylonian cuneiform and hieroglyphics. Also on the stones, it has an inscription with the sponsors of the projects, and under the sponsors, it states a small group of Americans who seek the age of reason. And of course, it says R.C. Christian's name on there, and where it was built, and what year it was open, and all that kind of stuff. So we have this inscription at the very top, and underneath that, there were 4 granite slabs. And each of these slabs were about 19 feet tall. And all of them together were 250,000 pounds. And they had this goal of being built to be earthquake-proof. So on the 4 slabs was inscribed 10 guides or rules for mankind. And so each side of each slab has these 10 rules in a different language. So there's 8 languages that these guides are written in. And these are Arabic, Chinese, English, Hebrew, Hindi, Russian, Spanish, and Swahili. So each slab is a different language. And these 10 guides...
They all say the same thing in a
They
different
also
language?
say the same thing, but in a different language.
Okay.
So these 10 guides all fall within 4 main subsections. So there's like 10 guides, but there's 4 like main topics they fall into. And apparently these 4 subsections are vital to maintaining humanity's survival in the future. And the 4 subsections include governance and the establishment of a world government, spirituality, the relationship of mankind to nature, and population of the world and control of reproduction. Remember that one, because that one we're going to come back to. So the 10 guides etched into the slabs are as follow. 1. Unite humanity with a living new language. 2. Rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason. 3. Protect people and nations with fair laws and just courts. 4. Let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court. 5. Avoid petty laws and useless officials. 6. Balance personal rights with social duties. 7. Prize truth, beauty, love, seeking harmony with the infinite. 8. Be not a cancer on the earth. Leave room for nature. Leave room for nature. And these are the last 2, but they're actually the first 2 written on the slabs. And I say these for last because they're the most controversial ones. And like I said, they're at the very top. So these 2 are maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature, and guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. What do you think? What's going on in your head? I see you're making some faces.
Well, obviously we're well over 500 million.
Yes. I saw that with our current population, 500 million is about 5%.
Yeah. And I'm wondering if you're controlling who and how much people are giving birth, how do you improve diversity? Like, wouldn't you
improving fitness and diversity?
Right, but and diversity.
Mm-hmm.
Improving fitness is like, I don't know. But like diversity, it's like, well, if there's only allowed to be 500,000 people, like, how are you going to improve diversity when, if your intention with reproduction is to keep like a cap of the amount of people, you would eventually, wouldn't that kind of end up meaning that everyone ends up being like one race? Like, wouldn't that be less diversity? Because if we are, as a world, capped at 500,000 or 500 million,
mm-hmm.
that means like eventually, it obviously would take a long time, but eventually, like, unless...
Well, the question is, how do you keep it at 500,000?
Well, yeah, that means you aren't allowed to have a kid unless somebody dies.
Right, so it's like you have to keep it at 500,000. And so we're going to talk more about this later, but just going to keep those in mind. Those are the 2 most...
And you'd have to kill a lot of people right now.
Yes, exactly. And that is... We're going to get into that, so keep that in mind. Those are the 2 that, honestly, I think all 10 of the guides are kind of creepy. Like, all 10 of the inscriptions.
Well, like, the earlier ones are, like... Some of them, I think, are creepy, and some of them are kind of like, oh, yeah, right. Like, unite humanity with a new living language. You're like, that's kind of, I mean...
It's very Tower of Babel.
Yeah. Well, I think it also is just, like, we all need to communicate, which you can see is, like, oh, yeah, that's positive, but also it's like, do you only want one language?
That's what it sounds like. There's a new language that everyone follows.
Yeah. And then, like, but then it's like, where was the one about the nature?
Be not a cancer on the earth.
Yeah, leave room for nature. Like, that is kind of like, oh, yeah.
Leave room for nature.
Leave room for nature again. Which is like, yeah, protect the earth and stuff like that. So I mean, I feel like all of them, except for the first two, are like, oh, yeah, but kind of creepy. Like, not necessarily, they're not like upright, like, oh, that's, like, you don't read those and you're like, oh, that's absolutely, like, that's wrong, that's horrific, that's morally bad.
I read it and I get creeped out.
Yeah, you read that and you're like, okay, well, how? Like, I see the desire. I see the desire for, like, one language that we all speak, because it's like, yeah, you can communicate with anybody.
But then that takes away from the
But then
diversity.
it's like, okay, are you then, like, how do you do that? You can only do that through control, right? Is the way you think about it. Or, like, protect people and nations with fair laws and just courts. Okay, well, who decides that? Like, it kind of is all like, yeah, that's great in theory. But the practice of actually getting there means, like, somebody has to be making these decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Some group or some person.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm like, I don't think these are any of them, except for maybe those first, like, the last two, which are the first two, are like, you don't read those and necessarily go, oh, yeah, this is, like, wrong.
When
you
I
read that and you go, oh, yeah, well, I don't know.
So when I hear, like, okay, everyone has one language, that to me, I think, is at complete odds with the diversity thing.
Yeah.
Because part of diversity is different cultures and different languages.
Right.
So if everyone is under the same...
Right.
Anyways. So just keep those guides in mind. So apparently, the Guidestones also serve an astrological purpose, with the capstone of the Guidestones being aligned with the North Star, and the Guidestones themselves serving as a sundial to reveal the day's date every day at 12. So apparently, psychics say that the site of the Guidestones is a place that has this huge draw. It has this psychic energy. And some people have said that if you hold your hands a certain way while at the monument, that the stones will pass along a psychic message to you. That's, I mean, I cannot confirm that. Nobody can confirm that now.
Do you know, like, what way you have to hold your hands on them?
I watched a guy, like, doing it in a video, and it's like he was trying to figure out you have to place it in a certain place, like, on the stones, and it's like, have your hands on it. I don't know. So, as I said, ever since the inception of the stones, there has been a lot of controversy surrounding the Guidestones, with people calling them satanic, calling them evil. So in May of 2022, they were like such a big thing that one of the Republican candidates for governor of the state of Georgia, a woman named Candace Taylor, promised that if she was elected to the position, she would destroy the Guidestones via executive order.
Interesting.
The Guidestones have also been the subject of vandalism a few times over the years.
Well, what isn't?
Right. They have been called by some the 10 Commandments of the Antichrist, with some believing that these are supposed to be the site of pagan or devil worship. But if you think about, like, I was like, okay, the 10 Commandments of the Antichrist, that's kind of like drama.
Interesting.
But then if you think about it, if you get into, like, what the Bible says about the Antichrist,
Yeah.
you're like, I can kind of...
Are you going to say anything about what it says?
I don't know a lot, but I just know, like, you can kind of see. Because the whole thing is, like, the Antichrist rules the whole world.
Yeah.
And then if you follow, you know, by the time the Antichrist gets to rule, there's a significantly smaller population in the world. Because people have died by disease or war or famine or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this kind of, like, world-arching government or rule, and this kind of world-arching, like, isn't there, like, new money and new language and all that kind of stuff?
I don't really know. I'd have to read Revelation again.
We'll get there. But I was like, that's really dramatic. And then I was like, actually, maybe it's not dramatic.
I mean, they obviously are connecting themselves with, like, the Christian church. Like, you know, he named
RC
himself
Christian.
RC Christian for a reason, and even stated that was the reason he chose that
Like,
name.
this represents my values.
Right. So, yeah. I don't know.
So, on July 6th, 2022, somebody or some group took matters into their own hands. And an explosion occurred in the early hours of the morning at around 4 a.m. that destroyed one of the slabs.
How did I not hear about this?
I don't know. I heard about it on another podcast I was listening to. And I was like, that's interesting. And it was interesting because I heard the guy was talking about these and the destruction. So, on the border between Washington and Oregon, there's that little, like, mini Stonehenge thing.
Oh, yeah.
We were literally, like, driving past it when the guy was talking about these. And I was like...
Interesting.
Impeccable timing. Anyways. So, investigation revealed that there was evidence of a bomb that had been planted at the scene. So, shortly after this, the government destroyed the remainder of the monument, saying that they did this due to public safety concerns.
Because they didn't want more bombs being placed there?
They just said public safety concerns. It sounded like they were concerned about the safety of the people investigating.
Right, because
maybe there'd be more bombs. I don't know.
If somebody plants a bomb there, you're thinking maybe they're going to plant another bomb.
Right. So there is security footage. They did have security cameras watching the Guidestones, which a lot of people think is creepy. Why are there security cameras watching the Guidestones? Yeah. The official explanation is that it was because of the vandalism. But I still think things get vandalized all the time. You don't have security staring at, like, watching it. I don't know.
Sometimes you do.
So there is security footage that shows a person planting the bomb at the site and then running away. Mm-hmm. And then you see their car drive away. However, despite security footage, despite investigation, a culprit has never been named. Regardless, whoever is determined to be responsible will face up to 20 years in prison for the bombing.
Jeez.
As well as the anger of the county for destroying a huge tourist attraction for the area. And people have even called the bombing an act of domestic terrorism.
Well, I don't know about that.
I feel like the phrase domestic terrorism and domestic terrorist gets thrown around a lot more than it needs to be.
Well, it's not like this. Like, who is that terrorizing?
Right.
Like, terrorism is something that's like, I don't know. When I think of terrorism, I think of, like, big things like mass, like, killings or, like, stuff like that. Like, that's terrorism.
With the idea to hurt another person.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think blowing things up is typically, like, a good thing to do.
I'm not trying to say it's good, but I'm saying, like, I don't see how this is terrorism. I just think
that I feel like...
That's, like, a step too far.
I think a lot of words in our current media have been thrown around so much that they actually, like, lose what their original meaning is. Like, domestic terrorism is a big one. Like, bombing is, like, you shouldn't bomb things, but...
Right.
Anyways. Some people have said that the Guidestones were destroyed as an act of God destroying the monuments himself.
Well, I don't think a bomb is an act of God.
Right. I think if God wanted to destroy the monuments, he could do it without someone else planting the bomb.
Right.
I mean, he could just...
Right.
Literally just explode them, like, with anything. But, so, one of the big questions, of course, is who is this mysterious organization that funded the Guidestones construction?
Yeah. The
big one, the New World Order.
Is this just what people think?
Yes.
Okay.
Nobody knows.
You just, like, said that as if this was, like, for a fact.
Nobody knows who it is. It's not been revealed. People think it's the New World Order.
Well, I mean, it
New
sounds
World Order
like
/ Illuminati is, like, the most popular.
Based off the things they want, in the things that they say they want, it's a one world government.
Right.
So, kind of goes along with the New World Order.
Right. So, if you don't know what the New World Order theory is,
you should by now.
You should. But just a little recap, it's the idea that there is this group of people within various world governments or within various places of power that want to ultimately have this goal of a one world government where there is one group of people that's in control of the whole world, and it's a very authoritarian rule. It's not like you elect a president for the world. It's like...
It's a dictatorship.
It's a dictatorship
but
for
the
whole
entire world. Yeah.
Yes. And so many conspiracy theorists think that the monuments were erected in support of or with the purpose of advancing the world toward the New World Order. And people also believe that the Guidestones contain instructions for depopulating the Earth or reducing the world population.
Well, they at least claim to, like, want to do that.
Right. So this would be a call to the mass genocide of over 6 billion people, as well as a call to eugenics.
Right, because they want to control reproduction and stuff.
Exactly. Guide reproduction wisely. improving fitness and diversity, I don't think that that's like referring to like birth control and safe sex. That's very
No.
much referring to like, we decide who is fit
Well,
to be
yeah.
part of this 500 million.
You put the two together, the 500 million cap plus the maintain like fitness and diversity, and that leads to, we say who can and cannot have a baby, and we say when you can and cannot have a baby.
Yes.
Or not even like can, we say who will or will not have a baby,
Yes.
or when you will or will not have a baby.
Yes.
Because like there's no other way to control it. There's no other way to control the population like count or things like fitness and diversity.
Yes.
Which fitness even, I'm like, I mean, I know that there are genetic factors to certain things, like being predisposed to something like asthma or something like that kind of stuff, which would, affect your fitness. But also, fitness, I feel like, is more of a, like, anyone can really like train to be more fit, I guess. There are like freak athletes and stuff like that who are just like born with like, you just see them and you're like, yeah, you were like born way more athletic than anybody else.
Yeah.
Like with like crazy wingspans or whatever.
Yeah.
Things like that. That just like, yep, that you were born with that. But you also see tons of people who are not and are still like competing on those levels because they train and they hit the work in and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that's something that's interesting, that like fitness, I guess, maybe to that and be more like,
When I think of fitness, I don't think of like, I think of one specifically like physical fitness, but I also think of overall physical health.
right.
So like I think of, okay, I have a thyroid issue. I
Right.
wouldn't be part of the 500 million.
Right. It does maybe lean more towards the things of like genetic diseases and things like that, where like
Yes.
if you have whatever so-and-so genetic disease that's going to be passed down or whatever, then
Or if
you're
you
not going to
have-
be allowed to reproduce.
Or if you have like, let's say a person has like, I'm thinking, how are they going to test for this kind of thing? How are they going to decide what's fit and what's not? Are they going to do blood panels if a person has diabetes? Are they not physically like fit enough to
We're
carry
clearly
on?
not there yet because we're still a little bit above the 500 million caps. So I think we got to
But
get
then
there
the thing
first.
is also, not only is this, you have to eliminate a huge portion of the population. 95% of the population of the world currently, that's 6 billion people that would have to be eliminated. So one, that's immediately awful.
Yep.
But then we also have this eugenics, because it's just like the whole idea of like, this person's not fit to carry on the race. Or then you have to think, well, the only way that they could actually make that a thing is forced sterilization.
Right.
Picking people, well, obviously people who aren't fit to carry on the race are probably going to be people in the 6 billion that are kind of taken out. But it's like, a smaller population like that is also a lot easier to control.
Yeah.
Because it would be so hard to control 6 billion people.
Yeah, no, it's true. It'd be a lot easier to control. That's why that's why there is no one world government, because it's just so much harder. Like, I think like the thing you see is like, especially back in the time when kingdoms expanding, like in BC and like that era, when every single like kingdom was like taking over other kingdoms and expanding their countries and trying to like build like this overarching thing. Like, you see, once you get big enough, it's harder and harder to control, and that's when it crumbles, because it's just, you can't control that many people. It just doesn't work. Eventually people are going to turn, or eventually enough people are going to rebel to where you can't stop it.
Yeah.
And so I guess, if you do keep the cap, then it's a lot easier to control.
Well, and then even if you spread out these people across the world, right? Then you could have like 100,000 here with like a local government that like watches them. 100,000 here with a local government that watches them. Like that kind of thing.
Right.
And some people believe that the Guidestones are instructions for rebuilding the population of the Earth in the event of a catastrophic doomsday, to be more in line with the goals and ideals of the New World Order. And like we were talking about, to have a smaller and easier to control population. And people who believe this theory about the New World Order also point to the fact that it seems that the Guidestones are kind of alluding to the creation of the one world government. I wouldn't even say alluding. I would say they're basically like
calling for it.
They're saying like it's pretty clear.
We want everybody to be ruled by us.
Yes. So some people call this the Great Reset. And it's kind of like the idea of like scrapping and starting over.
So just kill everybody and that's not in your group and then start over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That sounds great.
Yeah. So that's the big one is the New World Order. Now there's another group that I found while I was watching a program about the Guidestones that I thought was interesting. And it's a group called the Rosicrucians. So some people question whether the name R.C. Christian is a nod to the founder of the Rosicrucians, Christian Rosenkreuz. And this was a German society that was founded in the 15th century. So Christian Rosenkreuz is considered to be the founder. Some people don't know if he existed at all, if he was more of like a figurehead or if there was maybe more than one person who factored into this Christian Rosenkreuz fella. But regardless, according to legends, he was a doctor who spent his lifetime gathering something called sacred knowledge. And he created this organization to pass on this knowledge so that it wouldn't be lost after he passed. So at first, members of the group were also all doctors, and they had made oaths to keep this knowledge and group secret, as well as to find a replacement for the founder when he died. So the subject of the secret knowledge that he gathered were alchemy and psychic manipulation. So alchemy, I mean, you hear about it as being a thing kind of in like the 13th, 14th, 15th century, where a lot of people kind of conflated alchemy with magic. Like turning metals into gold or like creating a potion that would help someone live forever, that kind of a thing. So other things that people think members of the group are capable of is astral projection and assumption. So assumption is the ability to project your soul outward to other areas, as well as to take over the body of another person. So like project your soul to someone else. So this is interesting. Some people actually question whether the person responsible for the assassination of Bobby Kennedy, a man named Sirhan, I don't know, whether he was under mind control, as he was apparently a member of the Rosicrucians, which he became through the mail.
He became a member through the mail?
Yes, he became a member through the mail.
What does that mean?
Like, someone in the video said it's like ordering a mail order bride.
So he was like, hey, can I join your group? And they're like, yeah.
I guess.
You're a Rosicrucian now?
I guess. So...
That doesn't make any sense.
Some people think that the group still exists within the world. Some people think that it is not. But the people who think that the group does still exist believe it has the goal of protecting and guiding humanity from its inevitable destruction. So people...
a bad job.
Yeah. So people do still exist.
People
who practice and study this.
Okay.
Yes.
People do still exist.
Yes, people still exist, contrary to what the people who made the Georgia Guidestones want. So these people who still practice this call themselves students of the philosophy instead of saying they're Rosicrucians. So in one of the programs I watched, it's the same one, but there was this little old lady who is a Rosicrucian that was interviewed. And she says that she is a pastor. Like, she's a pastor at a regular church, and she's a Rosicrucian.
Okay.
And she stated that Jesus was a Rosicrucian. And that he was able to ascend to godhood and serve as a template to others to connect to the divine within themselves.
So is her claim that Jesus was a man,
right,
a regular man that was a Rosicrucian that ascended into godhood,
and that other people can follow his example?
Not that Jesus was the Son of God and then was also a Rosicrucian?
Yes. So I have a couple problems with this.
Well, my problem with it, hold on, because you have written out thoughts, and
Yes.
if I don't, so I can lose my thought.
That's true. Go ahead.
if Jesus was just a man who was such a good Rosicrucian that he ascended to godhood, why hasn't anyone else?
That's a good question.
You would think that we would have more stories of people, or more like religions of people following these people who are like so good that they became gods.
Yes.
Doesn't make any sense.
And also, okay, so this woman is like a pastor of like a Methodist church. I want to know where she's getting this from the Bible.
Right.
Because that doesn't seem to jive.
Mm-mm.
Also, okay, here's my thing. My main thing, besides the theological issues. So, apparently the group was founded in the 15th century. Which is 15 centuries
after Jesus was
after
alive.
Jesus was alive, after he died, and after he was resurrected. So if Jesus was a Rosicrucian, how was the group founded in the 15th century if Jesus was a Rosicrucian at like 1 or 33 AD?
He was a Rosicrucian before the Rosicrucians existed.
I guess so.
He was the original,
I guess so.
apparently.
So this woman also said that the group was driven underground because the Catholic Church saw that this group was a threat to the church, which is probably true.
The Catholic Church has seen lots of things as a threat to the church, but those things haven't been driven underground. They've just broken off from the Catholic Church and become their own religions or sects.
Honestly, I could see that being valid.
Well, yeah, no, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, why are you driven underground? Why didn't you just break off from the Catholic Church?
Because the Catholic Church had a huge amount of power in the 15th century.
Yeah.
They could just kill you.
Why? But there are so many sects of Christianity that broke off from the Catholic Church at that same time.
True.
So that my point is, why didn't the Rosicrucians do that too? Because the other religions turned out fine. The other sects of Christianity turned out fine.
I'm just looking at this lady.
I
don't know if this is this is not a religious group,
a
though.
Problem. Yeah, they are. They may say they're not, but they kind of seem like they are.
Right? They're like, no, we just study philosophy. I'm like, but it sounds like.
I don't know that.
Anyways, so this lady was like, oh, if Sirhan was a Rosicrucian, he was not a good Rosicrucian. None of us are evil. Nobody, like, we're a good group.
But you supposedly want to kill 6 billion
She says
people.
that they don't want to, that they wouldn't want to do that.
So she's saying that the Guidestones are not from the Rosicrucians.
So she's saying that the Rosicrucians are just average good people who study this philosophy.
So she's essentially saying that the Georgia Guidestones were not put out by the Rosicrucians.
And she says, not as far as I know. And then she has this cute little lady laugh. I'm like, I'm on to you, lady. Anyways, some people think that the group was evil and that the Guidestones were created to not only survive a apocalypse, but a man-made apocalypse. Here's the thing, though. How'd that work out?
Well, yeah,
they got blown up.
They're gone now, so.
Anyways. So the main symbol of the Rosicrucians is a white rose with a cross at the center. And it's called the Rosy Cross. And is often linked to the RC and RC Christian. So some people state that if you look at the Guidestones from above, they form the shape of a rosy cross. I'm not quite so sold on that one. However, other people believe that the Rosicrucians created the Guidestones as a set of rules for people to follow after a huge global catastrophe that would wipe out most of the population in America. And they thought that this was a solar flare that typically happens every 13,000 years. However, the problem was, they suggested that this solar flare would occur in 2012. And they had all the connections to the Mayan calendar and all of that. But here we are. It is 2022, 10 years later.
As far as I know, the population has just continued to rise.
Yes. Well, not in America.
It hasn't gone down.
Yes, it has.
From that.
No, not from 2012.
Yeah.
But the population has steadily declined in America, specifically since the 60s.
Okay. But
anyways, that's a whole other thing.
The complete, not what I was saying.
Anyways, so Rosicrucians, that's kind of another group that people think might be responsible. So some people, of course, think that the Guidestones are satanic, have ties to Satanism, and that they are even maybe a portal to hell.
Well, they're gone.
They're gone now.
So we're safe.
So what's the purpose of the stones?
Well, nothing now.
What was the purpose of the stones? We talked about maybe who founded that or who was responsible for them. So we have all those other theories kind of like to guide people in the establishment and...
But you have to go down to Georgia to be guided by them.
Right. But some people think... Okay,
couldn't they have like written a book and like handed it out? Seems a little bit easier than...
Yeah, but then it's
building
like
a stone
more
monument.
obvious. Anyways.
Is it?
So we talked about all the theories about, okay, well, it was maybe to guide people into this new world order, to, you know, enact this new rule. Some people think that it's a signaling system to aliens or a beacon of some sort. So that's a kind of a different direction. And another theory is that they were just built basically to be like a tourist attraction or to stimulate curiosity. The thing is, there was no marketing done after the Guidestones were built. So it's like they were built and it was never like, okay, the Georgia Guidestones, come see them. Like, they were built and then it was just like...
Right, I never
people
even
just
heard
stumbled
of them.
upon them. Yes. And R.C. Christian had a stipulation that there were to be no tourist attractions on the land around the Guidestones. So it seems that he was the founder or the person who was behind the building was very adamant that he did not want them to be a tourist attraction.
Right. Now that they've been destroyed, is R.C. Christian going to come back and build them again?
Who knows? We'll see. And there's also the question of whether there's a time capsule buried under the stones or near the stones that could potentially contain information about R.C. Christian, the group he represented, and the purpose of the stones. So there was an inscription near the stones that says there's a time capsule buried 6 feet beneath the stones, but people question it because of the next thing below that inscription. It says, placed on blank, to be opened on blank. And the strange thing is there's no date for either subject.
So maybe the time capsule never got buried.
Right, and that's what people think is maybe it just never got buried. Because if it had, you'd think it would say when it was placed and when it was going to be opened on, but it doesn't.
Right.
So people think maybe that was just kind of like an afterthought or like it just never happened. So as we kind of start to wind down, something that I found when I was like researching and looking into the conspiracy theories surrounding the Guidestones, I would say 9.9 times out of 10, all theories would be labeled as far-right conspiracy theories. Far-right conspiracy theories, QAnon theories, believe blah, blah, blah about the Georgia Guidestones. And that made me really mad. When I was researching, I was getting really heated because I think, one, that's just a way for the media to play it off and to make people who think it's weird look crazy. It's basically just like a big gaslighting thing that the media is doing. Like, anyone who thinks that these are like weird is into far-right conspiracy theories, which... if you believe in the New World Order and like the idea that there's this like global government kind of rising up, then you most of the time believe that the media is a part of that, is a part of pushing that and enacting that. And so I was getting so annoyed because I was like, okay, to label people who think this is weird as far-right conspiracy theorists is, first of all, just gaslighting by the media. And it is dismissing any claims without giving any serious attention to the fact, like, why are they so weird? And objectively, if you look at the inscriptions,
Right.
you have to admit that they're creepy.
Like, I would say that the stones themselves probably not all that weird because, like, we have Stonehenge and stuff like that, which Stonehenge is weird too. Or, like, it's just like on its own, it's just this, like, structure. Maybe it's art, maybe it's something else, like, whatever. It's just the structure. The thing that makes it weird is the inscription. And that is weird.
Yeah.
Like, I don't feel like you can read that and be like, that's weird. Like, I feel like you could read maybe the 8 ones and be like, I could see where people would be like, not that weird. But the 2, specifically the 2 about capping population and, like, controlling reproduction, those are weird.
Yes.
Objectively weird.
Yes. And it's like, it does not matter. To me, I'm like, it doesn't matter where you fall on the political spectrum because you could be a super far right or super far left and look at that about basically saying we need to have mass genocide or, I mean, if you take away the mass genocide part, let's just pretend that they're not implying that we should kill 95% of the population. You see that and you have to think, okay, so these people want way less people than we have right now. And they want us to pick, like, strategically, who gets to reproduce.
Right.
Like, you have to admit that that's creepy. Like, I don't think that it's in any way a far-right conspiracy
I don't think
theory.
it's political at all.
It's not. It's weird. So my takeaway from today, look at it for yourself. Like, if you hear about something and you think it's weird, just look at it for yourself. Because everyone has some kind of
right.
spin on a story, and objectively, most people would find this weird.
Yeah, if you don't find this weird, please let us know why.
Mm-hmm.
I would be genuinely curious to hear somebody's opinion for why this is not weird.
Yeah. So, as we wind down, Ethan, as always, what do you think of everything we've discussed in regards to the Georgia Guidestones?
I honestly don't have any thoughts other than that's kind of odd.
Yeah.
Like, because there's no evidence of anything. It's just like, those are weird inscriptions. So only one of the 4 was destroyed. Do you know what languages were on it?
I'm not sure which languages were on it, but they were all taken down.
Right, but only one of them was blown up.
Yes.
So I don't know. I was wondering if there was like a specific
I don't know
significance to the one that got blown up. Because like, why go and only blow up one if you're gonna blow them up?
I think they just planted a bomb, and
They,
only
like,
one
thought-
got destroyed.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. That's all I got.
Yes, I also think it's weird. I think it's just like downright creepy. It makes me it makes me very uncomfortable that like that was considered to be the values of this organization. Is it seems like he's like, well, this is what will lead us to an age of reason. That's the purpose, is to lead humanity to an age of reason. And so it's concerning that there was this organization that is well funded enough to fund this huge project and say money's no object. And one of the things they think will lead people into an age of reason is population control and reproduction control. And so that's definitely concerning. And I do think that like when you look at it and just read what the guides say, it does sound like at least there is this desire to move into this one world government. And it does seem like this world government has a significant amount of power.
Yeah.
And that raises questions as to like, okay, well, how much power? Who are these people? The fact that nobody knows who this guy is or the organization is, that kind of makes you wonder like, well, who was it? Like, who could be behind this? And truthfully, I think that the fact that they were blown up and then all taken down, and despite the fact that there's security camera footage, no suspect has been named, and it seems like the investigation's just kind of stalled. That also kind of raises some questions for me, and I think it does. The timing is interesting, considering that in May, I mean, there was a gubernatorial candidate who was saying, I'm gonna destroy these. These are creepy. And then 2 months later, I mean, she didn't win the primary. She didn't win the primary, but despite that, 2 months later, it's like, it makes me wonder, like, did her bringing attention to it make people start to question?
Which is, it is interesting that she brought that up as part of her political campaign. Like, what does that have to do with why you're running?
I don't know. But it does...
Like, if there was a candidate in Washington that was like, I'm trying to think of, like, some sort of, like, just a random landmark.
Space Needle?
Yeah, I'm going to take down the Space Needle because it's a public nuisance or whatever. I'd be like, what? Why? Why is that what you're running on?
That is weird. But I don't think that's what she was running on. I think that's one of the things she said she would do.
But anything you say you do is what you're running on.
True.
But I'm not saying that was her main point. What I'm saying is, if you bring that up as a part of your political campaign, I'm Like, why is that important enough for you to even bring up?
Yeah.
That's not gonna win. How are you gonna win votes by saying that? Is my point.
My thing.
Like, I'm not gonna be like, oh, you wanted to destroy the Georgia Guidestones? Heck yeah, you got my vote.
My thing is, I don't think that my thing has anything to do with any of your thoughts.
Oh.
But my question is whether she, by saying that, got people thinking about it, got people looking into it, and people were like, actually, yeah, that is weird. And then whoever was behind it could have destroyed it because they didn't want people digging into it.
Maybe
Anyways.
it was her.
Okay, well, we'll see.
Maybe it was. I'm just saying.
Anyways, as always, we want to know what you guys think. Do you think that these were creepy? And who do you think was the organization behind it? Like, do you think that what was the purpose? Let us know what you guys think about all that. You can comment below on the video. Make sure that you share us with a friend, share us with a member of your family. We want to know what they think too. And make sure you leave us a nice 5-star review on your streaming platform of choice.
And in that review, let us know if you were in charge of the world, what population cap would you put on it?
What?
I'm just curious.
We'll be back in a week.
Bye.
Bye.